It's such a pleasure to be here today. I've got 3 stories to share with you today. It's important as we come together to worship that we bring our stories, that we listen to one another and their stories, and feel a sense of connection. So my 3 stories today have to deal with a Home Depot, small congregation outreach, and 3 bags of trash. And then we will look a little bit at the scriptures, Doctrine and Covenants 163, verses 8 by Steve Veazey. And then, of course, Paul's letters to the Romans that Jackson had just read. So I was at a men's retreat one time and they talked about, the women tend to put the flowers up front and decorate the sanctuary. We don't have any skill saws or drills up front on the altar very often. So we need a good Home Depot story where we've experienced the Spirit. And so Friday, in getting ready for our trip here, our plan is to be here, and then Sharon's Aunt Gwen has a birthday party tonight in Kerrville. And then we'll swing up to Lampasas, where they're working to get Sharon's mom's home ready for sale. And we'll spend the night at the farmhouse up there that needs some sheetrock. So sheetrock. And it needs 3/8-inch sheetrock. So us guys know that 3/8 is not common sheetrock. Everybody's got 1/2 inch and 5/8 in different sizes. So I went to Home Depot. And I got there Friday afternoon, what's today, Sunday, just 2 days ago. And I've been there before when they were out of 3/8. So I go in and they've got 3/8. So that was the first good thing that I recognized the Spirit was smiling on me. The next thing is there were 2 guys, getting help in Home Depot, and sheetrock is too heavy for one person to really manage. So even though I had the nice flat kind of rolling table type cart to put the sheetrock on, I needed help. And here were 2 guys getting ready to do a big order of 1/2-inch sheetrock. And I said, there's a single sheet up on the top of the stack. I said, well, I'll take that 1/2-inch stack if you'll help me load it. And so they did. And I said, and I could use 4 sheets at the 3/8-inch if you could help me. And they said, sure. And they moved their forklift out of the way enough for me to get on through. And we loaded up the 4 sheets of that. The next issue that I was worried about, this house, the farmhouse, was built around 1900 by 1x12s on edge like that. And then they put the outside sheet thing kind of across to form it. So when I put the sheetrock up in between rooms, it's just 1x12s, which is only, that board is 3/4 inch thick. And so if I get an 1.25 inch sheetrock screw, it's going to screw through the wall on the other side. So I needed some 1-inch screws. So I searched around and found the right 1-inch screws that I needed. And then coming out, fortunately, it wasn't busy. And it was a little warm here and in Houston on Friday afternoon. But they've got that big covered area and I could kind of find a little place. And sheetrock in my car would kind of go at an angle like that. And we needed to load everything up. So I said, why don't I just cut the sheetrock so that it fits in the car? And so a guy came and asked if I needed help loading. I said, is it okay if I just cut the sheetrock here? And you're in the shade, and I've got that table that the sheetrock's on. And so I cut up the 5 sheets of sheetrock. So you guys, if we want to have a little prayer meeting at the back of the White Pilot, we can show you the stack of sheetrock like that. It is nice at times to know that things are going well, because a lot of times in life we run into problems. And that's what as we talk about recognizing the Spirit, how do we do that? How do we recognize when the Spirit is with us? Now, I'll show you the first of my many things. The actual bulletin cover, Recognize the Spirit. They've got the Community of Christ Daily Bread on there. and that's available online under Community of Christ, and you go to Daily Bread, and it's done by my recent friend, Kat Cohen from, was that right, Joaquin? From Vancouver. And I was on a Zoom meeting with her. I'm taking a class on spiritual discernment training, and Kat's in my class. And when we had a breakout section of just 4 of us, she was in that first breakout session with us. And so I'll just reference that as a nice way of knowing if the Spirit is with you. That a lot of times, I know for me personally, I will sometimes have thoughts and ideas, but to say I've heard the voice of God or voice of the Spirit, that's not me. But as I've gone through this class, we've talked about, well, how do we know if the Spirit is with us? And they said one of the ways we know is by reading our body, or how does our body feel? And do we have signs of confirmation, or do we have signs of desolation? So this was quickly captured on our class as one of the handouts as which side. So often as we pray about things, we kind of take something in ideas. So a sign, what would a sign of confirmation that our body's talking to us look like? Here's one. I may feel a little nervous, but deep down, I am at peace. Here's another one I like. I feel as if I'm moving towards something good, like it's the natural evolution of the way God has been leading for a while. It feels as if I am saying yes to an invitation. So just kind of some interesting signs that we look for, signs of the Spirit. Now, what would disconfirmation or desolation feel like? I'm agitated and confused. I am fretful about the future. I'm groping in the dark. And sometimes, you know, we drive into intersection and I say, now, which way was I turning, especially if it's a multiple street intersection? Here's another one. Move to neglect healthy, well-established relationships and to neglect prayer, community, and healthy behaviors. So again, here, it's just a realization that, wow, I know there are some things that will help me in the long run. Why have I been avoiding those? So in Paul's letter, and let's talk about Paul's letter just for a second. The nice thing is when it comes around on the 3-year cycle, the lectionary, is churches all over the world are focused on the same scriptures right now. I also like it that it gives us just a reminder of what was Paul doing? Why was he writing this particular letter? So Paul made 3 major trips, missionary trips through what is now Turkey and Greece, primarily. And on the 3rd trip, either as he was finishing that trip, and these trips are several year-long trips, and it was back towards Jerusalem or finishing up, he was writing a letter to the Romans. So that means he would have known, okay, I've got some things going on. They're going to take me, since I'm a citizen, I can ask to go to Rome for my trial. So he knew he was going to Rome, and he was thinking that I'll go to Rome and I'll continue on and do a missionary trip to Spain. So he's writing this letter to the Romans. And of course, Paul likes to write letters, and he takes quite a bit of time because he's trying to get everything down and to get it well written. So I'd like to just, it's quite a long scripture. I'd like to just go back to, we're in Romans chapter 8. I'm just going to do 5 and 6. For those who live according to to the flesh set their minds on the things of the flesh, but those who live according to the Spirit set their minds on the things of the Spirit. To set the mind on the flesh is death, but to set the mind on the Spirit is life and peace. So what is Paul trying to do here? He was looking at Christ, both his death and resurrection, and how that is the basis of bringing salvation to both the Jews and the Gentiles. And he keeps going back to justification comes from faith in Christ and not in these works of the law that Moses had written down in Leviticus and all the other things. So it's a pretty simple message, but when I read it, I get a little confused and we have to go back and read it. But it's looking for, let's look for the spiritual things. And our body tells us when something is kind of moving us in a spiritual direction, our body will let us know. And when we kind of move off into society and the common things that it's bringing us, we can kind of feel that lacking, like I need to go someplace else. So one of the things for me, I just retired last September, and I've on this spiritual journey, I'm looking for where it's been. And through my life, when I took off the cubicle at work, pictures of the temple. Here's the design of the temple. Here's the temple under construction. Here's the first service in the temple. And I am very excited that the Temple in Independence for Community of Christ was built during my lifetime. And I'm very excited to have been there and to have done the worshipers path up into it. But one of the things that I'm most excited about, not only do they have a cry room for the baby, they've got another room similar to the cry room, so that when they're doing a temple visit or showing a tour through the temple, if there's a service going on, they can go in and observe what's going on in the service without being disruptive. And I think that is such important. That's why I have a confirmation that the Spirit is open to all. And so it's just so exciting to have finally made there. And so I'm going to read several little bits through section 163:8, but just confirmation that Steve Easy gave us that the temple is an instrument of ongoing revelation in the life of the church. Its symbolism and ministries call people to reference in the presence of the divine being. So it is just very exciting to me that together we come together to learn more about this spiritual force that's kind of controlling and adding to our lives, and that the temple is right there to lead us. So my second story is about my concern. Of course, the Coastal Bend Mission Center President's team that I'm part of, we're concerned, especially our smaller congregations are right on the edge. And I think it's a concern that everybody shares. And so we're going through the kind of summer months where everybody's busy, but we have on August 26th, the Saturday in Northwest Houston, we have our extended leadership meeting. And so the leadership wanted to have something to, how can we address this issue? How can we hook up with God and the Spirit? What's going on that we need to be aware of? And so we scheduled a meeting, a Zoom meeting in June, and it was very good. Thank you, Lila, and and the other evangelists that joined with the leadership team to explore this. Okay, God, where are you leading us on something that we need help with? And that meeting was good. We came up with quite a few suggestions and ideas and had a follow-up meeting that was just this last Monday. So 2 weeks ago, when I'm doing the agenda, getting ready to send it out, I was struggling a little bit. What are we going to do? You know, I felt like the Spirit was there, but I felt like just to do the same thing we had just done wasn't what we were called to. And in my stacks of books and things, I came across this book by Linda Booth, which is God All Around. Now, it's a funny book in that I'd read it and I'd be on the airplane and, oh, I'm about halfway through and the woman next to me asked about it. And so I end up giving it to her. And then I'm somewhere else and about halfway through and I give it to somebody else. And so this is my third copy that I've personally had. And when I looked at it, my bookmark was halfway through in chapter 6. And so I started reading there, and it's Linda talking about what can we do for congregational outreach. And she's talking about we need to share our stories and we need to listen to other people's stories. And I was so excited that I didn't pay any attention to the copyright and scanned chapter 6 and sent it out to just our team. I said it would be okay if I buy some more of these books, which I have since done. And I feel like that was, and then we had quite a good meeting on Monday talking about this and sharing our stories and listening in ways. And I think that's a way that the Spirit is leading us. And we continue on. This is actually 8C in Doctrine and Covenants. And it's talking about ministries of the temple. As these ministries come to fuller expression, receptive congregations in the areas around the temple and throughout the world will be revived and equipped for more effective ministry. And, you know, I'm just amazed at how, at the time I needed it, the book kind of came up out of my stack. So it's another way that the Spirit works is often it works when needed. So my third story has to do with 3 bags of trash. This one drives Sharon crazy. It points out a little bit of me on how I'm a little crazy myself. So I've known Linda and Mindy for 10 years. Linda's 75 on Social Security, living on Social Security. Mindy is about 56. She's got a Social Security disability, mainly emotional. She'll get upset easily and cannot read or write. But together, they're able to afford a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom trailer home for only $500 a month rent and $500 a month electricity. And then Mindy's son lives there in a little trailer kind of on the backside, and Mindy's sister, Linda's son, who just currently got a job, was not working, lives in another trailer there. And so I had an opportunity this spring. Another friend of mine knew a homeless woman about the same age, mid-50s, who's in a wheelchair. And there was an opportunity. He said, do you think there's a chance she could rent a room from Linda and Mindy? I said, well, I'll check. I knew they had rooms because the roof leaks, and there were roof leaks in 2 of the bedrooms. There was only 1 good bedroom. So I talked to them and they said, yes, that would help them if they provided for 1/3 of the rent and 1/3 of the electricity. So $330 a month would be much needed income for them if we fix the roof. And they said, there's a problem with the bathroom. And when I looked at it, I saw, well, the problem was if water gets inside a trailer due to leaking roofs, it melts, and there was no floor in the bathroom, including, so the floor, you needed to start with new support boards underneath the floor all the way up. So I did that. Sharon and I committed, and I did most of the work. Dale, the son that wasn't working, helped a lot. The grandson helped. I've had a few friends that would go help, but I spent about the last 3 months working to rebuild 2 bathroom or 1 bathroom, 2 bedrooms, wheelchair accessible wide doors, and to get a wheelchair ramp onto the trailer. And it is amazing how the Spirit worked as we went through that process. And people were there when I needed people. Knowledge was there when I needed. We were able to, from scratch on Sunday, talk about a wheelchair ramp. And my friend who works at a lumber company had the lumber delivered on Tuesday, and by Thursday, the ramp was complete. So it's just amazing how some of those things worked. But as we went through this, something was gnawing at me. We say, where is the Spirit leading us? And I could tell I needed to be there, but it didn't seem like the rebuilding the bathroom was really what I was called to do. Certainly it helped. And we got Courtney, who was in the wheelchair, in for 5 weeks. And then she has since moved out due to, I could fix the bathroom, but relationships between people are much more difficult. And so we got through there. But what I discovered in working there was another 6 or 7 trailers within a stone's throw of Linda and Mindy's trailers. And so I got to know those people. Miss Pat, just right next door. Mariah, who seems to be a thorn, going back and forth on keeping little squabbles going, and her husband, Wesley. People across the street, and it would be just little things as Courtney and Mindy were kind of butting heads. Diana came across from the street and she says, well, you know, I'm a minister and I'll come do a Bible study with her. And so that helped, because that helped kind of ease tensions in that way. So it was amazing how I feel like that's where the Spirit was really calling me. So that brings us to the last 2 weeks, and we talk about how life can be messy. So first of all, Linda, a week ago Thursday, went into the hospital. So that's a concern. And I thought she'd just be in a day, but she was in for over a week and has now been moved to a nursing home. So that's a concern, because she's the one that handles finances for the family. A week ago Thursday, Mindy really badly sprained her shoulder. That it ends up that when Courtney went in and applied with the food shelters for food, she knocked Linda and Mindy off the food shelter, so they didn't have any food going over the July 4th weekend. So Sharon and I ended up getting them some food. But Sunday, now I mentioned I got to know the people. I also got to know the dogs. So Dale's got 2 adult pit bulls and 3 pit bull puppies. Plus Dale's got another smaller terrier dog. And those are all outdoor dogs on runs. Linda and Mindy have 4 little dogs inside. Mariah, they've got a big pit bull and a couple little puppies. Across the street, you know, they're just dogs. So Dale's dog, the small terrier, got loose off the run on Sunday, went over and attacked the new puppy for Mariah that Mariah had. Mariah called the animal control, who came out, and Dale was gone. So gave a ticket to Mindy. And then as you kind of get the whole story, I was talking to Wesley, the husband. He said, he wasn't going to do a ticket until Mindy started kind of giving a mouthful. And so anyway, she ended up with a ticket, and it ends up there wasn't any water for the outside dogs. And so that was included in the ticket. So now we've got all this chaos stirred, and now they're back kind of almost warring. And I felt like something needs to happen here. I need to do something to help ease the tensions. And so when I was there Tuesday to go get a sling for Mindy on her shoulder, actually, it was the first time I talked to Wesley and Mariah, really talked to them in the 3 months I've been there. And they asked for some help for their roof. Their trailer roof is leaking. And so I thought, well, maybe that's the opportunity if we work with them and show that we can how that community depends on one another. And so Thursday, I went and worked with Wesley, and we did cut a little exploratory hole in the roof. I wanted to bring that section, but Sharon wouldn't let me, to show you a rotted out roof. So it looks good, and we've got a tarp up over that. I took Mindy to CVS to get her prescription for her shoulder. Then we went by the courthouse. They haven't filed the ticket yet, so we're still waiting on that. Then we went to HEB to get some food. And on Friday, Tina, who's the mom and landlord, I got her number. So it seems like the Spirit is asking me to be more there in community and in that mess that we have. And so yesterday, I think it was when I was actually going on, I think Friday, I took a day off and said, I'll see you. Sometimes we need a little things for our peace. Oh, but while I was working there Thursday, because I left out those 3 bags of trash. So I've been on them for the last 3 months. You got to get the trash out. You got to clean the bathrooms. You got to feed the dogs in bowls. You got to keep water for them. It's hard to change people. And so I had walked by as I'd worked on getting the tarp up. Here were 3 bags of trash out there, plus the dogs had started to get in them, and it was starting to get spread around. So I double bagged them in the new heavy duty contractors bags and sealed them with tape. And while I was doing that, the animal control officer came back to check, and I had just talked to Mindy and son Joe about getting water in. Well, they didn't have the water out yet. And so hopefully I'm talking and saying, well, thanks for being here. And so it continues on, but I just couldn't stand. There's some things I can do, and it tells me a little bit about me. They're happy having trash spread around the lawn. I can hardly stand it. So my image of Zion has changed. When I had an image little, it was that we all mowed our lawns and we talked with one another and helped one another, and everybody looked just like me. And what I realize as I've gone through this last 3 months is that Jesus, when we study the scriptures and I watch The Chosen, he is with those that are on the margin. And that's where Linda and Mindy are. They're right on the margin. And it's taken a 10-year relationship to even be able to feel comfortable with them, to talk with them, to have something to talk about. It's not easy to have a relationship with somebody when you're completely different economically, where you're living, and it just takes time. And that's what Jesus did. He stood with people in need. And that's part of my spiritual journey, is figuring out, how do we do that without getting lost ourselves? How do we work with the Spirit to do that. And so as I was, I like listening to Christian music, and this was a song I hadn't heard by Stephen Stanley, Rest in the Father. I'll just read the first verse and chorus. Did all your dreams come crashing down? Feels like no one hears you now. Did all the good things fall apart? Got so much anxious in your heart? I know that pain. You are not alone today. And the chorus, even in troubled waters, even on shaky ground, you can find rest in the Father. Lay your worries down. He won't leave your side. He won't fail you now. You can find rest in the Father. Lay your worries down. So we look back to in Doctrine and Covenants and the temple ministries, and we say this is a work in process. That's where we're looking. Where is the Spirit? How do we discern where the Spirit's leading us? And here's the promise. There are additional sacred ministries that will spring forth from the temple as rivers of living water to help people soothe and resolve the brokenness and pain in their lives. Let the temple continue to come to life as a sacred center of worship, education, community building, and discipleship preparation for all ages. Thank you.